Did you know some foods are better off not refrigerated? It's a common misconception that for preservation, all foods need a chilly abode. But surprise, surprise, that's not always the case. There's a whole list of items that would rather stay in your pantry than in the cold confines of your refrigerator. So we've compiled a countdown of 10 foods that prefer room temperature. Curious to find out what these foods are? Let's dive in. Starting off our countdown at number 10, we have bread. Now it may seem counterintuitive, but refrigerating bread isn't the best way to keep it fresh. Let's delve into why. Bread, my friends, is not a fan of the cold. When you refrigerate bread, you're actually accelerating the staling process. This is due to a process known as retrogradation, where the starch molecules in bread recrystallize more rapidly at cooler temperatures. That's a fancy way of saying your bread gets tough and chewy. On top of that, the cool, dry environment of a fridge can strip away the moisture, leaving your once soft, fluffy loaf feeling more like a brick. Instead, a better option for bread storage is a bread bin or pantry. These places have a more stable temperature and humidity level, which will help your bread retain its freshness and taste longer. So next time, leave your bread in a bread bin or pantry, not the fridge. Before we wrap this up, if you're enjoying our content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join our community for more fun and educational videos. Coming in at number 9, we have tomatoes. Now, here's a fun fact for you. Putting tomatoes in the fridge is a surefire way to ruin their taste. Chilling them affects a tomato's texture and flavor profile. Let's think about it. When you bite into a tomato, you're expecting that juicy burst of flavor, right? But refrigeration, well, it slows down the ripening process, and this leads to a loss of both taste and texture. It's a bit like trying to enjoy a symphony with earplugs in. You're just not going to get the full experience. So what's the best way to store these ruby red gems? Simple. Keep your tomatoes on the counter. Room temperature is the ideal environment for these luscious fruits, allowing them to retain their flavor and texture. So remember, the next time you're tempted to chill your tomatoes, resist. Keep your tomatoes on the counter for the best taste and texture. And don't forget, stay tuned till the end to find out the number 1 food you should never refrigerate. At number 8, we have honey. Now, who doesn't love this sweet golden delight? Honey is nature's candy, a sweetener that has been adored for centuries. But did you know storing honey in the fridge can actually do more harm than good? Here's the science behind it. Honey is a natural substance that contains very little moisture, making it an unwelcoming environment for bacteria and microorganisms. When you refrigerate honey, it can begin to crystallize. This crystallization process causes the honey to become solid and grainy, making it hard to use. It's not harmful, but it does change the texture and makes it less enjoyable to eat. So, how should you store honey? Simple. Keep it at room temperature. A kitchen cabinet or pantry is perfect. Just make sure it's away from direct sunlight and heat sources. This way, your honey will stay smooth and easy to spread, ready for your next culinary adventure. Keep your honey at room temperature for easy spreading. Coming in at number 7, we have coffee. Now, who doesn't love a good cup of joe to kickstart the day? But here's something you might not know. Refrigeration is a no-go when it comes to storing your coffee. You see, coffee is hygroscopic in nature, meaning it readily soaks up moisture and odors from its surroundings. When you stow away your coffee in the fridge, it's like sending it on a flavor-sapping mission. The cool and moist environment can cause your coffee to lose its original flavor notes and instead start absorbing the odors from the leftover lasagna or that pungent blue cheese. And let's not forget about the condensation. Every time you take your coffee out of the fridge, condensation forms, which can lead to your coffee becoming stale and losing its freshness. So, where should your coffee call home? A cool, dry place away from light and moisture is where you should store your coffee. And remember, store your coffee in a cool, dry place. At number 6, we have potatoes. Now, you might be thinking, what's the harm in refrigerating potatoes? Well, the cold temperatures in your fridge can actually wreak havoc on the starch in potatoes, triggering a process called retrogradation. This is where the starch molecules in the potatoes realign themselves, leading to a change in texture and taste. Instead of that delightful, fluffy inside we all love, refrigerated potatoes can turn gritty and dark. Plus, the flavors can become noticeably less vibrant. Imagine biting into a beautifully roasted potato only to be met with a dull taste and a texture that's more akin to sand than spud. Not exactly appetizing, is it? So what's the solution? Simply store your potatoes in a cool, dark place. A pantry or a cellar is perfect. This way you'll preserve their delicious taste and texture. So remember, keep your potatoes in a cool, dark place instead. Coming in at number 5, we have onions. Now, onions are a kitchen staple, adding a depth of flavor to countless dishes. But did you know that your refrigerator is not their best friend? That's right. When onions are stored in the fridge, the cold, damp conditions can cause them to become mushy over time. This is because onions are high in sugar, and these sugars break down in cold and humid environments, leading to a soft, unpleasant texture. Furthermore, refrigeration can also encourage mold growth in onions. The moisture inside a fridge creates a perfect breeding ground for mold, which can quickly spread and ruin your entire batch of onions. To keep your onions fresh and flavorful, it's best to store them in a cool, dry, well-ventilated place. A pantry or cellar is ideal. Remember, proper storage can make a huge difference in the longevity and taste of your onions. Store your onions in a cool, dry, well-ventilated place. At number 4, we have garlic. Now, isn't it interesting that this potent little bulb is best kept out of the fridge? Here's why. When garlic is refrigerated, it tends to sprout. You've probably seen this happen, a little green shoot emerging from the bulb. While it's not harmful, sprouted garlic can have a bitter taste that's not exactly desirable. But that's not all. Refrigeration can also make garlic moldy. The damp, cold conditions inside a fridge provide the perfect environment for mold to grow on your garlic. This not only affects the taste, but can also make the garlic unsafe to eat. Don't forget, garlic is a bulb, much like an onion, and it's used to being stored in cool, dark places in the ground. So the best way to store garlic is in a cool, dry place. Just pop it in a kitchen cupboard or pantry, and it'll be good to go. Keep your garlic in a cool, dry place. Coming in at number 3, we have bananas. Now, who doesn't love a perfectly ripe, sweet, and creamy banana? But achieving that perfect ripeness can be tricky, especially when the refrigerator enters the scene. You see, the cold temperature of the fridge slows down the ripening process of bananas. This leaves them stuck in their green, underripe state longer than you'd like. While this might be beneficial if you've stocked up on bananas and want to extend their shelf life, it's not the best strategy if you're craving a ripe banana. The cold simply keeps them green. On the contrary, bananas ripen best in room temperature, where they can comfortably transition from green to yellow, and eventually, if left long enough, to brown. So, if you're looking forward to enjoying a beautifully ripe banana, perhaps in your morning cereal or as a standalone snack, remember to keep them out of the fridge. If you want your bananas to ripen, keep them out of the fridge. At number 2, we have avocados. These lovely little fruits, yes fruits, are a staple in many a diet, but they can be a bit finicky when it comes to ripening. Now, you may be tempted to toss your avocados into the fridge to keep them fresh, but let's pump the brakes on that idea. Refrigeration actually slows down the ripening process of avocados. This means that if you put a hard avocado in the fridge, it's going to stay that way for a much longer time than if you had left it out on the counter. So, how do you ripen avocados? Well, the answer is simple: room temperature. Avocados ripen best at room temperature, so leave them on your counter or in a fruit bowl. And if you're in a hurry, put them in a paper bag with an apple or a banana. The ethylene gas these fruits release will speed up the ripening process. If you want your avocados to ripen, keep them out of the fridge. And finally, at number 1, we have olive oil. Olive oil, the liquid gold of the Mediterranean, a staple in kitchens worldwide, and yet so often misunderstood. It's a common misconception that olive oil should be refrigerated to prolong its shelf life. But in reality, refrigeration can cause olive oil to solidify and become cloudy. Here's why. Olive oil is primarily composed of monounsaturated fats, which solidify when chilled. This doesn't mean the oil has gone bad, but it can alter the texture and make it harder to pour. Plus, repeated thawing and solidifying can degrade the quality of the oil over time. And what about light and heat? Well, they can also degrade olive oil, leading to a loss of flavor and nutrients. So, where should you store your liquid gold? The answer is simple. Keep it in a cool, dark place away from direct sunlight and heat sources. Store your olive oil in a cool, dark place. And there you have it, the top 10 foods you should never refrigerate. Let's do a quick rundown of these gastronomic revelations. We started with bread, how refrigeration accelerates the staling process, turning your fluffy loaves into disappointing bricks. Then tomatoes made the list, as the cold fridge temperatures destroy their flavor and texture, leaving them tasteless and mealy. Next up was honey, nature's sweet treat that will last forever at room temperature, but crystallizes when refrigerated. And who could forget about coffee? We learned that storing it in the fridge can lead to condensation and ultimately ruin its flavor. Potatoes also made the cut. Their starches convert to sugar in the cold, resulting in a sweet and gritty texture when cooked. We also delved into onions and garlic, which need ventilation and can become moldy and rubbery in the fridge. Bananas, those versatile fruits, were next, as they can't ripen properly in the cold. And avocados, the trendy superfood, also suffer from refrigeration, halting their ripening process. Last but not least, we concluded with olive oil. This Mediterranean staple turns cloudy and hard when refrigerated, losing its smooth, rich flavor. So, let's break free from the refrigeration misconception. Not everything that can fit in the fridge should be there. These 10 foods are testimony to that. Remember, not all foods need to be refrigerated. Sometimes the fridge does more harm than good.